I remember being irritated about how slow things seem to go. That's gone.
Apparently, sleep also disappears.
Evidentially.
Oh my gosh.
Did you eat already?
Did you happen to see my new hobby?
Yes. Very nice.
I'm gonna pop it up before we dive in here. I spent a little time since things went haywire yesterday and I didn't wind up having programming. I came and took a little reprieve on my back porch where we now have birds. I'm now the proud parent of birds. And there's this one. Look at this picture. Can you see the bird?
Oh yeah.
It's coming in fast. Is that the coolest thing ever?
That really is.
Diving.
He's
dive bombing.
Yeah, and there he is. I mean, he came in and then stopped on a dime. It was really crazy.
Yeah, you're definitely getting old.
I've got official old people problems here.
Next thing you know, you'll be sitting on park benches with breadcrumbs.
Whipping bread at ducks. It's kind of been one of my life aspirations is to be that old guy with Elizabeth just whipping bread at ducks.
The pigeon guy.
I am on my way. I'll have pigeons on my hat. I need to get a decent rimmed hat, I think. That's what I need.
Oh man, that's funny.
So, all right. Well, it is September 24th, and we got quite a study today. Let's dive in. Todd, why don't you start us out?
All right. This is Daniel's last vision. Is it just coincidence that in the same year the temple foundation is laid and the restoration is begun in earnest, God should bring to Daniel another amazing vision of both near and future events? This is a time of great expectations. It is a time for perspective and overview. It is a time for reassurance that God will continue to rule in this world and in the world beyond, even after his promised restoration is complete. It is a time for looking far into the future and having the comfort that all the struggles of this life are going to be vindicated. As with Daniel's previous visions, this vision too is filled with symbolism, with names apparently having double meanings and with oblique references to future historical events. The first part of the vision calls Daniel's attention to various kings and princes, especially kings of the north, who do battle with the kings of the south. The four Persian kings may well be Cambyses, Smerdis, Darius, and Xerxes. The mighty king of Greece is probably Alexander the Great. If Egypt is the kingdom of the south, then perhaps the kings referred to are the Ptolemies, Soter, Philadelphus, and his daughter Bernice, and Ptolemy Philopator. If the Seleucid kingdom of Syria is the kingdom of the north, then perhaps the kings referred to are Antiochus III, and almost certainly the contemptible Antiochus Epiphanes, who will desecrate the temple and bring a temporary end to sacrificing. The second part of the vision appears to be much more futuristic. Using the character of the king of the north as a springboard, it looks as if the vision jumps ahead to the time when a certain king will pretentiously exalt himself. The vision then ends on the most hopeful note of all, resurrection. In the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a revelation was given to Daniel, who was called Belteshazzar. Its message was true, and it concerned a great war. The understanding of the message came to him in a vision. At that time, I, Daniel, mourned for 3 weeks. I ate no choice food, no meat or wine touched my lips, and I used no lotions at all until the 3 weeks were over. On the 24th day of the first month, as I was standing on the bank of the great river, the Tigris, I looked up, and there before me was a man dressed in linen, with a belt of fine gold from Uphaz around his waist. His body was like topaz, his face like lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, his arms and legs like the gleam of burnished bronze, and his voice like the sound of a multitude. I, Daniel, was the only one who saw the vision. Those who were with me did not see it, but such terror overwhelmed them that they fled and hid themselves. So I was left alone, gazing at this great vision. I had no strength left, my face turned deathly pale, and I was helpless. Then I heard him speaking, and as I listened to him, I fell into a deep sleep, my face to the ground. A hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. He said, Daniel, you who are highly esteemed, consider carefully the words I am about to speak to you, and stand up, for I have now been sent to you. And when he said this to me, I stood up trembling. Then he continued, do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, because I was detained there with the king of Persia. Now I have come to explain to you what will happen to your people in the future, for the vision concerns a time yet to come. While he was saying this to me, I bowed with my face toward the ground and was speechless. Then one who looked like a man touched my lips, and I opened my mouth and began to speak. I said to the one standing before me, I am overcome with anguish because of the vision, my Lord, and I feel very weak. How can I, your servant, talk with you, my Lord? My strength is gone, and I can hardly breathe.
Again, the one who looked like a man touched me and gave me strength. Do not be afraid, you who are highly esteemed. He said, Shalom, peace, be strong. Now be strong. Then he spoke to me. I was strengthened and said, speak, my Lord, since you have given me strength. So he said, do you know why I have come to you? So soon I will return to fight against the prince of Persia. And when I go, the prince of Greece will come. But first, I will tell you what is written in the book of truth. No one supports me against them except Michael, your prince. And the first year of Darius the Mede, I took my stand to support and protect him. Now then, I tell you the truth. 3 more kings will arise in Persia, then a 4th, who will be far richer than all the others. When he has gained power by his wealth, he will stir up everyone against the kingdom of Greece. Then a mighty king will arise and who will rule with great power and do as he pleases. After he has arisen, his empire will be broken up and parceled out toward the 4 winds of heaven. It will not go to his descendants, nor will it have the power he exercised, because his empire will be uprooted and given to others. The king of the south will become strong, but one of his commanders will become even stronger than he will rule his own kingdom with great power. After some years, they will become allies. The daughter of the king of the south will go to the king of the north and make an alliance, but she will not retain her power, and his power will not last. In those days, she will be betrayed together with her royal escort and her father and the one who supported her. One from her family line will rise to take her place. He will attack the forces of the king of the north and enter his fortress. He will fight against them and be victorious. He will also seize their gods, their metal images, their valuable articles of silver and gold, and carry them off to Egypt. For some years, he will leave the king of the north alone. The king of the north will invade the realm of the king of the south, but will retreat to his own country. His son will prepare for war and assemble a great army, which will sweep on like an irresistible flood and carry the battle as far as his fortresses. I've completely lost my place. Am I halfway done with this page, or am I into
Halfway done to the page. Keep going.
Okay. All of a sudden, I'm like, I've absolutely completely no idea where I'm at. Then the king of the south will march out in a rage and fight against the king of the north, who will raise a large army, but it will be defeated. Then the army is carried off, and the king of the south will be filled with pride and will slaughter many thousands, yet he will not remain triumphant. The king of the north will muster another army larger than the first, and after several years, he will advance with a huge army fully equipped. In those times, many will rise against the king of the south. Those who are violent among your own people will rebel in fulfillment of the vision, but without success. Then the king of the north will come up and build a siege ramps and will capture a fortified city. The force of the south will be powerless to resist. Even their best troops will not have strength to stand.
The invader will do as he pleases. No one will be able to stand against him. He will establish himself in the beautiful land and will have the power to destroy it. He will determine to come to the mighty of his entire kingdom and will make an alliance with the king of the south. And he will give him a daughter in marriage in order to overthrow the kingdom, but his plans will not succeed or help him. Then he will turn his attention to the coastlands and will take many of them. But a commander will put an end to his insolence and will turn his insolence back on him. After this, he will turn back towards the fortresses of his own country, but will stumble and fall to be seen no more. His successor will send out a tax collector to maintain the royal splendor. In a few years, however, he will be destroyed, yet not in anger or in battle. He will be succeeded by a contemptible person who has not been given the honor of royalty. He will invade the kingdom when its people feel secure, and he will seize it through intrigue. Then an overwhelming army will be swept away before him. Both it and the Prince of Covenant will be destroyed. After coming to an agreement with him, he will act deceitfully, and with only a few people, he will rise to power. When the richest provinces feel secure, he will invade them and will achieve what neither his fathers nor his forefathers did. He will distribute plunder, loot the wealth among the followers, and will plot the overthrow of the fortresses, but only for a time. With a large army, he will stir up his strength and courage against the king of the south. The king of the south will wage war with a large and very powerful army. He will not be able to stand because the plots devised against him. Those who eat from the king's provisions will try to destroy him. His armies will be swept away, and many will fall in battle. The two kings, with their hearts bent on evil, will sit at the same table and lie to each other, but to no avail, because an end will come at the appointed time. The king of the north will return to his own country with great wealth, but his heart will be set against the Holy Covenant. He will take action against it and return to his own country. At the appointed time, he will invade the south again, but this time the outcome will be different from when it was before. Ships of the western coastlands will oppose him, and he will lose heart. Then he will turn back and vent his fury against the Holy Covenant. He will return and show favor to those who forsake the Holy Covenant. His armed forces will rise up to desecrate the temple fortresses and will abolish the daily sacrifice. Then they will set up an abomination and cause desolation. With flattery, and he will corrupt those who have violated the covenant, but the people who know their God will firmly resist him. Those who are wise will instruct many. Through a very time, they will fail by the sword and be burned or captured or plundered. When they fall, they will receive a little help, and many who are not secure will join them. Some of the wise will stumble, so that they may be refined, purified, and made spotless until the time of the end, for it will still come at an appointed time. Josh, I'm going to go one more, because then you've got 2 and change. Sound good? The king
Sounds
will do
good.
as he pleases. He will exalt, magnify himself above every god, and he will say unheard of things against the God of gods. He will be successful until the time of wrath is completed, for what has been determined must take place. He will show no regard for the gods of his ancestors or for the one desired by women, nor will he regard any god, but will exalt himself above them all. Instead of them, he will honor a god of fortresses, a god of unknown to his ancestors. He will honor the gold and the silver with the precious stones and costly gifts. He will attack the mightiest fortresses with the help of a foreign god, with a great honor those who attack him. He will take the rulers over many and will distribute the land at a price. At the time of the end of the king of the south will engage him in battle, and the king of the north will storm out against him with chariots and cavalry, great fleet of ships. He will invade many countries and sweep through them like a flood. He will also invade the beautiful land. Many countries will fall, but Edom and Moab and the leaders of Ammon will be delivered from his hand. He will extend his power over many countries. Egypt will not escape. They will gain control of the treasures of gold and silver and all the riches of Egypt, with Libyans and the Cushites in submission. But reports from the east and the north will alarm him, and he will set out a great rage to destroy and annihilate many. He will pitch his royal tents between the seas at the beautiful holy mountain, yet he will come to his end, and no one will help him.
At that time, Michael, the great prince who protects your people, will arise. There will be a time of distress, such as has not happened from the beginning of nations until then. But at that time, your people, everyone whose name is found written in the book, will be delivered. Multitudes who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to everlasting life, others to shame and everlasting contempt. Those who are wise will shine like the brightness of the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. That shine like the brightness of the heavens is in a song. I gotta remember that because I want to remember what song. It might be a secular song, I don't know. But let's figure that out. Okay. But you, Daniel, roll up and seal the words of the scroll until the time of the end. Many will go here and there to increase knowledge. Then I, Daniel, looked, and there before me stood two others, one on this bank of the river and one on the opposite bank. One of them said to the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, how long will it be before these astonishing things? Yeah, there's a lot going on here. Okay, everybody's going, shh. Okay, I just lost my place.
How long will it be before these astonishing things are fulfilled?
Are fulfilled. The man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, lifted his right hand and his left hand toward heaven. And I heard him swear by him who lives forever, saying, it will be for a time, times and half a time, when the power of the holy people has been finally broken. All these things will be, can you scroll down, Mark? All these things will be completed. I heard, but I did not understand. So I asked, my Lord, what will the outcome of all this be? He replied, go your way, Daniel, because the words are rolled up and sealed until the time of the end. Many will be purified, made spotless and refined, but the wicked will continue to be wicked. None of the wicked will understand, but those who are wise will understand. From the time that the daily sacrifice is abolished and the abomination that causes desolation is set up, there will be 1,290 days. Blessed is the one who waits for and reaches the end of 1,335 days. As with all apocalyptic prophecies, the time when these events are to occur is subject to widely diverse interpretation. The first part of the vision apparently has reference to events to take place over the next 4 centuries. Because the historical account in Scripture falls mostly silent during the period evidently referred to, this revelation may well be meant to fill that gap, at least in outline form. Moreover, these events would be especially significant in leading up to the time before the coming of the Messiah. As for Daniel himself, the vision ends with an assurance that after his death, he will rise again to receive his reward. As for you, go your way till the end. You will rest, and then at the end of the days, you will rise to receive your allotted inheritance. So ends the record of Daniel's life and marvelous encounters with the world beyond. Challenging as his visions sometimes may be, they are invaluable in stretching one's imagination to the time when all mysteries will be revealed. What a great ending.
Amen.
Plot
Yeah.
thickens. You know, I really, there was a couple things that just jumped out at me at the beginning. We have him dating it, which is helpful. We know then that he was about 90 years old, something in his 90s maybe, when he has this vision. And the people were, you might remember, were given permission to kind of go back at this point and reestablish themselves in Jerusalem. But Daniel was in the service of the king. I mean, he was sitting in commitment to to serve the king. So whether or not he just felt an obligation to stay, or maybe he felt like at this stage of his life, he spent, from his teenage years on, that it was just too late for him to head back. His concern for Jerusalem and for the Israelite people remains fervent, and yet he's ending his life here in this Babylonian Empire. And so there's this kind of an amazing thing that's happening. And then, as he begins this, we see him mourning for 3 weeks, and he eats no food, no choice meat, no wine that touched his lips. He didn't use lotions for 3 weeks. He said he's fasting is what he's doing. And I love that he comes to this place of experiencing this anguish, feeling like he's got a message, seeking God in the midst of it, fasting, and in the face of this vision of war, and in the midst of that, the angel Michael shows up on the scene, and there's this crazy thing that happens where another angel is there, which may be Christ, and is speaking into this world, and then talks about he was delayed in coming because of the prince of, who was the prince that that delayed it?
Was it Darius?
Not sure. It was, he talked about there was.
He talks about it a couple of times where he was yeah.
Was it actually the Prince of Persia?
Yeah, the Prince of Persia. Where was
There you
that?
go.
That was
Further
the-
up, I think.
That was a fun computer game we used to have, Prince of Persia.
Well, the thing with that, which is interesting, is when we talk about the Prince of Persia, probably talking not about a human being, but an angelic or demonic being. And the idea that Paul picks up on the theme in Ephesians chapter 3 in verse 10, it's so that the church and the manifold wisdom of God might be made known to the rulers and the authorities in the heavenly realms. That there is in Daniel's vision a sense of angelic forces that are warring with one another, and there's princes or principalities that are kind of over regions that have authority in those regions, which is one of the reasons why, again, the Apostle Paul goes on in Ephesians and says, our struggle is not flesh and blood, but it's against rulers and authorities and against principalities or powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil, not here, but in the heavenly realms. And that's really a lot of what we're seeing in this prophetic warring, is both the duality of there's some prophecy here that was meant for their era, the next 400 years, but there was another piece of this that was designed to give us a sense of this cosmic battle that is waging around us, and those who have eyes to see can pray and fast and speak to God in the midst of it, and he comes and answers, and he's really empowered by the reality that his people would, not empowered, I guess, but he loves that his people would pray in the midst of that, and that we are doing some amazing work on our knees when we choose to bow and pray. And so not to underestimate the power of prayer, what's happening behind the curtain, and recognizing that in this cosmic play, we get to be players on the front of the stage, but there's all kinds of stage hands that are at work making things happen, and some of them are evil and are trying to upset the course of history, and pretty powerful stuff in my mind.
You
Yeah,
know, the other thing, oh, go ahead, Josh.
I was just gonna say, I don't want to get off track, but that's so interesting to think about that in the heavenly realms, like you pointed out, that the spiritual warfare that's going on. We often have the perspective of like just a kind of single personal spiritual warfare, like, oh, this is, there's a battle going on, and I'm experiencing spiritual warfare in my life, and it's like, well, actually, it's going on everywhere
Yeah.
and with every life, and our lives are being swayed one way or the other. You know what I mean? And that's such a powerful perspective to be like, I'm just part of this bigger battle that's going on.
Yeah,
Really.
and
And,
there's a real enemy that's seeking to kill, steal, and destroy your joy, your purpose, your direction, your happiness, your satisfaction, and that's real. I mean, it's not like I'm not the demon under every bush guy, but man, the demonic is a real deal. And in Ephesians, what we were just looking at, the text goes on to talk in Ephesians 6 about that's the reason why you put on the full armor of God, and then describes what that full armor is, and how we're meant to kind of think as warriors in the midst of a real battle, because there is a real battle that is waging for the hearts and minds of our families, for our children. There's a real battle for your spiritual fervor and the direction that you're going. And ultimately, Daniel says, the way that I've lived my life, I've run the race, I've stayed the course, and it's going to go well for me. I'm in my 90s. I can look back and go, I'm going to eventually here be with God. But even then, it's kind of an interesting thing how he has this picture that we reflect on so often about how the dead will rise, and what does that even mean, and how, in some measured way, we kind of have in our Christian faith come to the kind of the understanding of things that our hearts are our spirit goes to be with God when we die, but there is a resurrection of the body as this new creation gets, afforded us, and the new heavens and the new earth, and a lot of that comes right out of Daniel's impressions. So pretty great. How have you most recently been encouraged in your spiritual life?
Quick story, Mark. Last night, Mike and Lexi had Connie and I over for dinner. Just a simple little dinner, but the first time as a married couple, they invited us to come over. And it was so cool because, normally when our family gets together, it seems as though I'm the one who will end up praying for the meal. And last night, I wasn't even an option, because Mike, as the man of the house, he prayed over the meal. And I tell you what, that one simple thing was so encouraging to me.
Yeah.
For him, to step into that role in a time when he has, he's in a new role. He's in a new role as the husband. And it was just really, really cool. And I was encouraged very much by that very small thing.
Did you affirm that in any way?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Never give up the role of encourager. That's
right.
That gets to be yours forever. So
you bet it does.
Yeah. What else? How have you most recently been encouraged in your spiritual life?
I think it's easy for us to look in our lives and look for positive things that have happened to try to encourage us in our spiritual life. But the time I've been most encouraged usually involves trials and struggles and all sorts of stuff, either within my life or seeing it within other people's lives and being encouraged with how they come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just recently, my wife lost her mother, and to watch her family, kind of come together and bond and use that tragedy as something to bring them all closer. And it was very encouraging. So I think that a lot of trials and struggles and even death in our lives can lead us to be stronger and encourage us in our spiritual life. So that's kind of where I've seen it throughout my life. Is it's unfortunately usually trials that you learn from and use.
Yeah, I think that's really natural too. There's something about hardship and trials that gives us opportunities to prove our faith, to prove it even to ourselves sometimes, or to prove our our diligence or our authenticity. We get to prove, the nature of our commitment. I mean, there's all kinds of things that in the midst of trials that we get to prove. One of the things, though, and I've thought a lot. I've meditated on a lot on this. Sometimes I'll go away to quiet places and I'll think about things, and this isn't to speak to anybody else's circumstance, just my own. But I think sometimes I've created my own struggles because I like to see myself come out victorious. And I thought, in some of the last meditations that, I need to, start finding more success in my spiritual life in beauty than in triumph. And and so I'm seeking things like places where I can sit and watch birds, like we started the chat out with. I'm looking for, where do I see God's beauty in creation rather than just finding triumph and victory, because sometimes that becomes a self-sabotaging prophecy for me, where I'll allow things in my life to get kind of out of control or bad so that I can come out victorious in the end. And I don't know that I don't know all of the psychosis about why that's my world, but I've got enough evidence to suggest that there's something going on there that's horribly misguided. So anyway, my horribly misguided leadership. Josh is like, yeah, I've seen that.
That's not why. It's not misguided though. It is real and it's beautiful, but kind of, going off what both you and Chris are talking about, I just was journaling this morning, and it's like whenever I've come to a place of like, brokenness, or like I finally am like, okay, I can't control this anymore, or I don't know what to do with this situation. It's like God will move in like these very particular subtle, not always subtle, but like ways. And it's just so weird. It just seems like in the midst of like, when you feel like you're failing and you can't, do something right or control something, all of a sudden you see God, you see what God's doing a little better. And it's like, and it's just this constant reminder of like, oh, it's, God will always be strong in my weakness. Like that's never going to change. And the hard thing is, how do you perceive that, and how do you move forward with the right perspective and use that for good, but anyway, I was just kind of journaling and reminding myself this morning of like, okay, just remember that when you're on your knees again, when you remember that you need God, you can't do this yourself, like he shows up, and so that's what's been encouraging in my spiritual life. And I just hope and pray that we can, or especially for myself, that I can navigate that the right way. And again, that's me holding on to control, being like, well, I need to do exactly what God wants me to do with this situation. And it's like, no, I need to continually give the situation to God and surrender it to him and trust him in it.
Why is it particularly important, do you think, to pray for those in political leadership?
Mark, I think go ahead, Josh.
No, I have nothing good to say. You go.
Yeah, but they get to hear me every day. We don't get your wisdom on a daily basis anymore.
I feel like I was just going to give the typical answer that politics are corrupt and Christians need to be able to navigate through the corruptness of power and money in politics.
Well, that, and then I think, going back to what Mark, you had said earlier, when you talk about a spiritual battle, that, we see, to Josh's point, we see those things it's really sort of on the surface, or what we see in this dimension. But imagine the spiritual battles that must be raging at that level. I mean, we've all got our own spiritual battles in our personal lives, right? But if you are the leader of a country, if you are a world leader, what might the spiritual battles, if you could actually see into that realm, what do those battles look like when you're responsible for decisions that affect millions of people?
Mhm.
I wonder if it's different. So if that's true, then we don't even come close to praying enough for our leaders,
Hmm.
because if they truly are in a spiritual battle far beyond anything we can imagine, we got to cover those people in prayer almost on a constant basis, right?
Right. And you look at even local leadership, it's like, I mean, you had a chance to kind of get up close and personal recently with city council business,
Yeah.
and it's maybe on a grander scale, but when you look at going to state politics or national politics, but man, important issues for our communities are being decided all around us, and oftentimes maybe not bathed in prayer or supported in prayer like we could support them. And it just strikes me that there is something very powerful when we start realizing that the grand play has two parts to it. There's the stage with which we stand, and then all the other actors and players that are behind the scenes and the spiritual heavenly realms piece of that story gets stripped away, and we go, wait a minute, there's a lot of things that are happening here that are going unseen, and we maybe ought to be more diligent. If you're suddenly if you were suddenly elevated to a social position of great power, what personal pitfalls would you be careful to avoid? None of them. I would fall into all of them. I'm certain. I'm absolutely certain. I would I would find every hole and pitfall, and I'd be climbing out of it. That's my MO. Go look for pitfalls, holes, great chasms.
I had Mark. I had someone share with me, and this is years ago when I was started a new position in a role of leadership, and he came to me and said, "I'm going to give you some advice." And he said, "The first time someone comes to you to tell you something, your response should be, 'Really?' The second time they come to you with something, you should say, 'Really?' And the third time they come to you, you should say, 'Really?'" That was his advice for dealing with people who maybe want to come and complain. So the pitfall would be don't
That
step in every.
that explains so much of our recent conversations.
Really?
All Todd's been saying to me every time I talk to him.
Really? Really, Josh?
Evidently, that mentor was very, very wise, and you took it.
Spot on.
What do you think, though? If you were all of a sudden elevated to great power, what pitfalls would you be careful to avoid? Obviously, pride, right? I mean, we want to be able to avoid pride.
I think pride is one. I think one I've fallen into, and I tend to do often, and I have to pray through it, is I always try to please everybody. And I think when the whole saying goes, you try to please everybody, you're pleasing nobody. And I can get caught up in trying to be political and trying to please, two sides of each situation, each story. And, I'm in management with my job at work and I manage 10 individuals, and it can just get to be where if you're trying to please this half, the other half isn't, so just kind of trying to please everybody is not trusting a decision or trusting, God's leadership in my decision has been tough. So.
Yep. I get that. It's a no win, and ultimately, if you wind up landing there too often, you lose the respect of both sides.
Well, and I think too, and I know that I made light of what I said earlier, but I think the wisdom in that is really to be careful and examine, Chris, to your point, what's being shared with you. Maybe not, you don't take everything at face value.
If Daniel were given a vision of our society, what major weakness and strengths might he identify? We do give these questions to the panel ahead of time, you guys. Just so you know.
Well, my first instinct is I'm struggling with the idea of strengths. Right at this moment in time, I'm really having a hard time with strengths, other than the fact that we consider ourselves to be a free nation. Boy, I'm seeing a lot more weaknesses than strengths at this point in time.
What do you guys see in the chat as you pop some of the strengths in the chat that you see? Because I think probably I see intolerance and a couple of other things coming up that, yeah, I think we can probably all agree. Tolerance that was you, Josh. Was that you?
Yeah, but I was just repeating Judy.
Okay. It feels to me like we could probably come up with a good list of weaknesses pretty fast. What would be some of the strengths of our
All I can do is weaknesses. No, I'm just kidding.
perseverance?
Good idea.
Yeah.
Global reach. Nice.
So impact, yeah.
Yeah, the ability to globally reach people, spread the gospel. That's a good one.
See, I think one of the great things about the statement itself, and particularly for our leaders, and maybe this is one of the things that we can be praying for them, is that God would give them the ability to define reality accurately. I mean, if you never define reality, it's hard to have a vision for how to move out of the reality. And I see so often that the paradigm with which we come at things from a political perspective, liberal or conservative, so powerfully colors our perceptions that it's hard, I think, to chart a vision forward that is unifying, because it's so entrenched with dogma, and there's so much power plays that have to be made, and putting others down in order to climb up. And those are the things that ultimately, I think, wreak havoc on social societies and confidence that the people would have in their politicians or in their leaders. Leadership right now is a commodity that's in short supply in a way that's really meaningful. I think about leadership almost every day for a few minutes. I try to think about leadership, and I think that one of the problems is that thinking about how to lead well is in short supply. Just pondering it. What does good leadership even look like? I don't know that we're thinking about it well enough.
See you on Twitter, Mark.
Yeah.
#leadwell.
Yeah, that's primarily just, it's my own personal leadership journal that you're the only person that reads. Yeah. So what rewards are promised to the faithful and wise?
Is that a specific in this scripture?
Well, I don't remember the exact spot, but it did speak to it, the sort of the eternal rewards and the price that would be paid for not. But I can't remember the exact wording.
So in your own words, what do you imagine are going to be rewards for the faithful and wise?
Well, for me, it's God saying, "Well done, good and faithful servant."
So there's an eternal reward.
Yeah.
Yeah, salvation.
Salvation, eternity, an eternal affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It is amazing how those words written in scripture there, Josh, that God would look at us and say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant," have become such an anchoring and powerful motif. There's been more than a few times where in a worship service or something that the consideration of the possibility to hear those words just has brought me to tears. Just as, there's a deep, profound desire, I think, in a lot of us to hear God speak that affirmation over and into our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And Daniel actually had it a couple of times with his vision. He was referred to as an esteemed one. And I wonder what that felt like.
Yeah. What rewards or promises in being faithful could you imagine somebody experiencing here, even right now? What is walking underneath that canopy of favor or canopy of blessing, under the umbrella of God's blessing? What can that bring into your life now?
A sense of peace would be the first thing that comes into my mind. You know, you can always tell when somebody's walking the right walk when they're walking in peace, whether it's things that are happening awesome in their lives, or if it, like we mentioned earlier, tragedy. If they can walk in peace, it just seems to be that huge reward that's given to them when they come to believe in Jesus. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
really
when I
good.
thought contentment, same thing maybe.
We see a lot in scripture about being strong and courageous. We mentioned that this last weekend, just the kind of the overarching theme that kind of runs through so many texts, to be strong and courageous in the face of whatever adversary, spiritual or real, that you're facing. I think that strength and courage can be part of what we receive. What else? Josh, you look like you got something.
Yeah, I was just thinking God promises to give us rest if we come to him. Give us peace, promises to save us. Promises that he will overcome the world.
The joy of the Lord will be our strength. Rejoice. And again, I say rejoice. Rejoice and be strong. Rejoice and be courageous. Those are all themes that kind of echo for those who are walking with God.
Mm-hmm.
Todd, any last thoughts?
No, but I other than that, I love that sense of peace. You know, when, and maybe we've all experienced them at different times. That's a special place. When you feel like, you know, at least for a moment, you know, maybe there are times when God has affirmed, you know, Mark, in that quiet time of watching the birds, or, you know, things like that, where God has said, you know, I love you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, well done, but more than anything else, I love you.
Yeah.
And there's a comfort there that comes when you can rest in that.
It is a powerful thing when we begin to anchor our lives into the love of God. So let me pray for us and get us out of here. It looks like I've let the time just kind of run past. So God, I do thank you so much for your love for us. I do ask that we would experience it in the deepest sense, and that we would anchor our future in what you would have, not in what we would want. So God, we trust you again with our day. We trust you with our lives. Help us to exhibit that trust in the way we walk this out today. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Sorry to keep you late, students, but I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. God bless you and have a great rest of your day.
See you, everyone.
See ya.
Yeah, everybody. Have
Bye.
a good day.